Good evening, everyone. I'm Melissa Muscat, Chair of UJA Women's Philanthropy, and alongside my wonderful Vice Chair, Perry Kirschenblatt, we would like to welcome you to Book Talks, the first virtual edition. Women's Philanthropy is a vital part of UJA and is playing a significant role in the organization's new emergency campaign for community resilience. This campaign was launched in order to tackle the challenges facing our community in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. Tens of thousands of community members have become newly vulnerable due to job loss and financial uncertainty. And 1 in 8 community members who struggled with poverty before COVID-19 are now in greater danger. With the help of donors and volunteers, UJA has been supporting those most in need by mobilizing over 1,000 volunteers, placing over 18,000 phone calls to identify the most vulnerable, and supplying over 2,500 households in need with food. While we've made a tremendous start, the needs of the community are growing. UJA's comprehensive plan for our community's renewal and recovery will be ongoing. Please visit jewishtoronto.com for more information on how you can help. Before we continue, I did want to make mention that over the past few days, just when it felt that the world couldn't take another crisis, we've been watching what's been happening in the United States with great concern. It's a reminder that even amid a global pandemic, we cannot lose sight of the fight against racism and the importance of standing up when other communities are hurting, just as we hope and ask that they stand up for us. I would also like to acknowledge that there may be families on this webinar who are suffering from this crisis, whether facing physical health, mental health, or financial challenges. Please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We are here to support you in any way we can. In the chat, we have included the number of UJA's hotline if you would like to speak to someone at UJA. And now, please watch the following video.
Our clients are scared. Our clients are frightened.
People worried about how am I going to support myself? How am I going to support my family?
This is that rainy day. In fact, this is a thunderstorm. It's a tsunami.
Our seniors, many are in a state of crisis.
We're hearing a lot from women who have found themselves in abusive situations from which they can't escape.
And all of a sudden, because of COVID, have no income and are worried about feeding their children.
One of the things that has been very challenging is watching our frontline staff and some of our co-workers become ill.
With school closing, our respite programs, after school care, all of our supports have been sort of on hold.
I can't tell you how many people have reached out to us to say that they would not be eating right now if it wasn't for, the collective efforts of our community.
From day one, UJA contacted us and got us enough Zoom accounts.
And with the support of UJA Federation, we've been able to prepare and deliver over 7,200 meals.
Really, with UJA, they allow us to treat our clients with respect and dignity.
This is why UJA was created. UJA was created to be able to respond as a community so that every Jewish person in this community has their needs met.
A donation can make the difference between us having these services for years to come and a service that's being cut.
Clearly, these are unprecedented times.
Now is the time when your money can really make a difference.
It's our obligation to show everybody in our community that we are not indifferent.
The need is so great and is so obvious and it's so local.
If we don't give and support our most vulnerable now, then when?
Thank you for sharing that important information, Melissa, and what a powerful video. Hi, everyone. I'm Faith Sherman, and together with my two co-chairs, Leslie Flatt and Bonnie Reichard, I'd like to say how thrilled we all are to have author Ellen Schwartz here with us tonight. Ellen is the founder of Project Give Back, the co-founder of Jacob's Ladder, and the author of 2 books, which she'll discuss this evening. Whether through her organizations or her books, Ellen's determined desire to help others cope with life's toughest challenges has always been clear and so inspiring. We can't wait to hear some of her insights this evening. But before we get to Ellen, I'd like to give you a bit of background on how book talks came to be. We all knew and loved women's philanthropy, its camaraderie, its feeling of sisterhood, and the building of community it helped to instill. And what better way to socialize than through engaging books? The aim was to organize a book club through UJA that would bring women together and give them the opportunity to hear, learn, and gain insights from authors directly. Through book talks, we've also been able to learn about the great work UJA's partner agencies have been doing for our community. We're now in our 5th year of book talks, and we couldn't be more proud. So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight through the webinar and continuing to learn and gain valuable insights with us. We wish we could have seen you all face to face, but we're excited that we have the technology to continue to engage, even during a pandemic. Bonnie Reichard will moderate any questions after Ellen speaks. Please note, if you like, you will have the opportunity to submit questions in the chat while Ellen is speaking. The questions will be monitored. We will try to get to as many as we can, but please know that due to time constraints, we may not get to your questions. And now for the main attraction, I'd like to welcome Ellen Schwartz, our guest of honor.
Hi there. Thank you so much, Faith. It is lovely to be here with all of you tonight. That video was so powerful, and kudos to all of you and what you're doing and how you're making such a big impact in our community. As you so beautifully said, people who had it tough before have it even tougher now. So thank you so much. And we can all do so much to help. Even one person, we've changed the world. So, but I especially want to thank you for, out of the 80 nights that I've had to cook dinner in a row, I'm off the hook tonight. So that's pretty awesome. And I thank you for that. So many of us right now, I know, are just feeling very uncertain about life. It may be a little bit out of control. It's unsettling, unpredictable. And some of us are feeling loss and grief and out of balance. So I feel like I'm kind of good at dealing with hard knocks because for over 20 years, I had to deal with life like that when I didn't know what tomorrow was going to be, or it was just so unstable and uncertain. Let me tell you a little. I'm not going to tell you too much of my story with Jacob, but I will show you. These are my 2 books that I wrote, since it is a book talk. The first one is called Lessons from Jacob, and this tells the story of my son, Jacob, our son, should say, our son, Jacob. And the second book is called Without One Word Spoken. So the first book tells Jacob's story, and it's all about turning tragedy into something quite beautiful. And the second book is how to put your head up when life can be falling all around you, when all you want to do is hide under the covers. So that's what the second book is about. And the second book will be released again in soft cover in December with an added 8 chapters on when your worst nightmare actually does happen. So that's going to be coming out soon. But let me tell you a little bit about Jacob. I couldn't wait to be a mom. And when I was 30, Jeff and I had our firstborn son, and he was beautiful. We were so excited to start this life. And we noticed that Jake wasn't making all of his milestones. So we went to SickKids, and at 4 months, he was diagnosed with a fatal, rare neurodegenerative disease that attacks the central nervous system. So we were told that Jacob wouldn't be able to walk or talk or see, would lose his ability to eat and to breathe, and would probably die by the age of 5. So as you can imagine how heartbreaking that would be. And it was. But I'll fast forward a little bit to say that although all those things were true, Jacob in his life, he never walked, he never talked, he never spoke a word. He did have a lot of medical issues, very complex and very severe, but he lived till 21, and 21 of the most beautiful years I could ever imagine. And the other thing is, you think about that, if I know for me, if I couldn't walk or talk or see, had trouble breathing, struggling with every single breath, I don't think I'd be happy all the time. But Jacob, he was just the happiest, most grateful, most positive human being I'd ever met. Every single morning, he would be struggling to get that first breath, and he would finally do it. And then he would just put this huge smile on his face. So every single day for 21 years, we would learn, you know what? My problems aren't so big. If he can smile, well, then what's my problem? So I learned really early on that we can control only 2 things in our lives. That's it. Life is out of control, but there is 2 things that we can control. And one is our thoughts, and the other is our actions. And that has a lot of power to it, because, you know, negativity likes company. It really does. But so does positivity. It likes company too. And people who are negative and come together in their negativity, it can bring you down. But people who are positive, when they get together, all it does is build you up. So put me in that positive line every single day of the week, and I'll be there. And I hope you do that too. But there's been a few tricks, and maybe I'll share a few of those tricks with you. And then I'm going to show you a video. And then I want to talk to you a little bit about grief and moving forward through grief. And that's what the 2.5, not the 3rd book, the 2.5 book will be about. But for years, you know, I had to open my resilience handbook, and I preached what I practiced, and I practiced what I preached. So most days were built on gratitude and an attitude of gratitude. But there were some days that were really, really hard. And that's when I had to put these techniques or little tricks into practice, because, you know, when you're a parent, you always need to have your A game. You know, you have to do your best. Yes, it's important for your kids to see you low, because that is part of life, but you really have to be the best you can be at all times. So let me tell you a few of my tricks. The first one is all about the power of giving. Early on, when Jake was diagnosed, I was so low, and all I wanted to do was feel better. So I decided, you know what? I am going to do things for other people. I'm going to try to make someone else feel better, because you know what happens? When you make someone else feel joy, you feel joy. And so my friend Lee taught me how to make her beautiful challah. And went over to her house, and it was actually a funny story, because there was no recipe, and she was just making that challah, and she did, you know, got her hands going. She said, make your challah. And I went home and I made a rock. And then I tried again, and I tried again, and I tried again, and I kind of perfected Lee's challah, which turned into Ellen's challah, and taught many people, which is now their challah. But when we used to make these challahs, we would give away 3. And every week, myself and Jeff and the kids decide about who was going to get those challahs right out of the oven on Friday. And when we showed up at someone's doorstep, just their smile was so precious. It made us feel really, really good. So early on, I learned that lesson. But the other thing is, I really wasn't very good at math, but there's an equation that works. And it is 90% to give, 10% to take. And that works with every single relationship, and of course with our children, but it works all the time, because what happens is when you expect very little, you're always surprised. Jacob lived like that every single day of his life. He expected so little, he really didn't. And yet he was surprised all the time. And he was just so joyful. Even when he wasn't feeling good, he was able to put that smile on. Another thing, part of the giving spirit was I was a teacher and loved to teach. So I developed this curriculum at the school I taught at, which was 8 Scion, and developed a program called Project Give Back. And now it's in 65 classes a week. And it's all about building empathy, resilience, kindness, and acceptance to others, and sharing your passion and letting others see that passion and learning from one another. So the boomerang is our logo, and it's all about the power of giving, because when you throw out kindness, and that's the boomerang, it hits you back harder. And Jacob is my muse to that program, and I share him with all the kids, and then they come back and they share their passion. And our teachers do the same. We have 21 teachers now, and they are all the most loving, beautiful, caring, positive people. Because like I said earlier, when you are positive, you end up being with people who are very similar. So I'm so grateful to have this team of loving, inspiring women. And it's all about the power of giving. Another thing I learned very early on was when you are feeling joy, when you are in your most beautiful place, or just so happy, maybe it's a bar mitzvah or a wedding or a party, or just going for a walk with someone, or just enjoying intimacy in a moment, like just stop and just take it all in. You know, if you're outside, for me, it's a sunset. If I'm outside, I shut my eyes and I can feel that sunset. I can hear the birds and I can feel the heat. And I just memorize that moment, because when life gets hard, you can close your eyes and you can bring that moment back at any time you need it best. You know, right now during COVID-19, it's a really difficult moment for so many of us, but there's so many beautiful gems that happen in those moments. I mean, to have teenage kids and to have them 24/7 every day, every night with you, it's been like a blessing. It's been a little blessing in disguise to have that. And I know many young moms who are at home and they have their young kids all the time, and it's difficult, but then I speak to them and they say, you know what, it's such a gift, because I don't know if I'd ever get this back again. And I think of the special needs community and the homeless, and my heart just goes out to them, because it is such a difficult time. So we really have to try to give to everybody we can, but we all need to find those moments that we can shut our eyes and bring back our favorite times. My favorite is here, right on the cover of my second book. This is my happy place. That's my memorizing the moment. That's where I go when I'm feeling sad. So I want to share something with you, because another thing that I really think is so important for you to concentrate on is your passion. If there's something you love to do, do it as much as you can. If you can make it your job, great, because then you just always love what you do and you do what you love, but many of us can't. And so, but if there is a passion, do it as much as you can to give yourself some happiness inside, a little bit every day. Jacob, his was music. He loved music. He just heard 3 notes on a guitar and he lit up his whole insides. He would smile, his eyes got wide, and he just loved it. And because of that, so many very talented musicians were attracted to Jacob. And we made Sundays in our house magical music Sundays. And when Jake turned 20, we all got together and we wrote this song. And it is If Jake Could Speak, What He Would Say. So I'm going to show you that now, and you could see a little bit of Jake's life and the people around him, and listen to the lyrics, and I hope you enjoy the song. Okay.
Coming from the cold on a Sunday, I've been waiting for you. Pick up your guitar and play me a song. Let the music lift our souls. I love the sound of your voice and your fingers on the strings. This moment with you is more
So we had it all figured out. We had our Sunday jams. I had my tricks. We were moving day to day, although, you know, we were with palliative care day in, day out. We had our routine. And then he died. He actually died. We knew it would happen. We knew every day. We knew this was going to happen. We were just so not ready and so not prepared. And he went up. He went up, and we sunk. Our family sunk. You know, they always said he was on borrowed time, but we weren't very good at giving things back when we borrowed things. So, but then he was taken, and his time, his mission was fulfilled. And we were so grateful for that mission, and his mission was very clear. But I learned something. I learned something really important during that time, and this is what I'm going to put into the third part of the book, the part that's not finished, is when your heart is broken wide open, like wide open, it's only then, and truly only then, when you can truly see the beauty that surrounds you and all the kindness that surrounds you. We were raw. We were totally raw. And our hearts were broken. But what happened during that time, although we didn't have Jakey, what happened during that time was incredible. The hundreds of letters, mostly from 9-year-old kids that came in with the most beautiful sentiments every day were dropped off at our house. Our family and friends just came together for us. We were broken. We couldn't do anything. And they just came. My sister-in-laws, they took 10 days off work and just stepped in. They just stepped in and took over our lives. Two of our friends, let me just backtrack and say at this point, we were living at a rental house because we were building Jake's dream house, our family's dream house with Jake. I'm actually sitting in his room right now. But at the time we were living in a rental, and his bedroom was a den on the main level. And it was filled with his hospital room, with his hospital bed, with his pumps, with his oxygen, all medical equipment. And two of my friends knew that during this time, that was the room I wanted to be in. That's the room our whole family wanted to be in. But no one that came over would want to be in a room, in a hospital room. So there was a ring at the door, and there was a moving truck. And out went the hospital bed, out went the pumps, out went the suction machine, out went all the medical equipment. In came 2 couches, in came a coffee table, in came a rug, in came art, and those 2 friends turned Jake's room into the most beautiful room, and that's where we sat for 2 weeks, whenever we could. So they even got the fireplace working because we had to turn it off because of oxygen. We didn't ask them to do any of that. They just did it. After 2 weeks, I went back to my classes, and one of the schools that we teach in is at Jane and Finch. And I walked in, and it was, as you can imagine, a very heavy-hearted moment to walk back into class and put it on. And they're all 38 kids, met 38 kids in that class. All of them came running. And we had this big group cuddle. And I told them what had happened. And I told them exactly what I told you. When your heart breaks, all you are forced to see is beauty around you. And one little girl whispered in my ear. She said, Ellen, and she's 9, Ellen, I know you're going to see Jake again one day. And to me, that changed everything, because from her words and her heart, her beautiful heart, made me realize that, you know what? Our relationship isn't over. It's just changed. And from that moment on, everything changed. But then I got to think, I'm thinking, oh boy, Jakey went where the most purest of souls go. And if I'm going to see him like that one day, I got a lot of work to do. So I have to work on being good and being kind and trying to live life the way he lived life. And my sadness and grief needed to change. It needed to turn to fuel. Fuel to continue Jake's messages. Fuel to transform negativity into positivity, narrow-mindedness into growth mindset, exclusion into acceptance and inclusion. And then a new equation was born, and it was easy. Pain equals love. I learned at that time, the greater the pain, the greater the love. And boy, how lucky were we to have that kind of love in our lives. It was such a gift. So just for a moment, I want to discuss grief because we're all going to face pain and we're all going to struggle and we're all going to grieve. And we're all, best part, we're all going to have to heal. So during that time, Dr. J Grief Counseling Center sent in a grief counselor to our house, to our teenage kids, Bevy and Ben. And Lisa made the most amazing analogy. She said, grief is just like puddle jumping. You don't know when it's coming, but you hit a puddle. And some are really deep and some are pretty shallow. And when you sink hard. But you know that you're eventually going to get to the other side. Because you get there, something will bring you out. And then as time goes on, those puddles become further and further apart. We would always say to each other right at the beginning, I'm in a puddle, and we would just run to each other because we knew that we needed each other, and thank God for that. So, but the important thing is to let yourself sink into that puddle because you will come out the other side, and when you do sink, you're giving that pain such value, and that pain is love. It's just love disguised when that's all it is. So that was just such a valid point for me to puddle jump. And I'm still puddle jumping and I'm still sinking, and sometimes they're shallow and sometimes they're deep, but I'm making my way out, which is quite something. So Jake, I'm going to finish up with this. Jake had 4 distinct rules that he lived by. It was kind of his moral compass, and he was born with them, and we learn to understand these rules. And the first one is he was just so positive. Everything he did, I don't think he ever had a negative thought. I don't think he was able to have a negative thought. And that was so contagious, more contagious than anything out there. The second thing is when you're with Jake, he forced you to live in the moment because that's all he did. He lived in the here and now. He wasn't worried about yesterday and he wasn't worried about tomorrow. He was there in the present every single time. And when you were with him, you just started to breathe like him. You just relaxed you. He just took you to this beautiful place where you were just at peace. And he lived like that for he lived like that for 21 years. But if I were to say, if we live like that, that would be equal to probably 120 years. So we should all try to live in the moment like him. The other thing is he just appreciated everything and everyone around him. And it was such a gift to watch that, to see that smile from the smallest little things like a breeze or a nice smell or the sound of Jeff's voice when he came in or the sound of music. It was so remarkable to see. He taught us that too. And one of the most important things about Jake, and I think in today's time is just even more important, he didn't care what you looked like. He didn't care where you were from, what religion you were. It didn't bother him. He couldn't see you. He felt you. And he felt your kindness and your goodness. So if we could all look through Jacob's eyes, I just think the world would be such a more beautiful place. So through Jake's life, I learned so much. And through his passing, I think I've even learned more. I would have died for him, but now through his death, I will live for him. And Jake's living chapter may be over, but his story and lessons will continue forever. So I think we can go to some questions now. Thank you.
Ellen, you are so incredible. I'm sure I'm not the only one who wept through most of your presentation. You're amazing. And the way that you have been able to take something that would probably send most people under the covers and never wanting to come out, and not only overcome that, but to turn it into a community-wide initiative. You are known, you are adored, you are loved. It's amazing what you've accomplished and what you have to teach us. It's incredible, really. So I'm Bonnie Reichert, and I'm going to lead the question period of tonight's evening. So the way it's going to work is that you can go to your chat at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and you can type your questions in, and I will do my best to present as many of them as possible. And I'm just going to start with one from the team, the Book Talk team, and it's a lovely one from Faith. About 20 years ago, as a guest speaker at my Hadassah chapter, you spoke very candidly about your daily life raising your young children and shared a survival technique that helped you overcome intense emotions and stress. You said your daily shower was your respite to cry and scream if necessary, and afterwards you were able to emerge emotionally and physically cleansed. This practical tool has stayed with me, and I've shared it over the years. Your book offers so many life lessons. Do you have a favorite go-to tool that you can share with us tonight?
So thank you, Faith. Yeah, I call that tool worry time. And that is a really important appointment that I make with myself every single day. And, you know, many of us, we try to meditate or we try to have some type of outlet to escape from our lives, right? And it's so important that we do that. But worry time is actually the opposite. And it's to just head on, face those worries head on. And for me, as Faith said, it's usually in the shower, and I go in and I worry and I think about everything that is bothering me. And when I get out, if I can control it, I take care of it right away. But if I can't, it's out of my control, I try not to worry about it, and it'll creep up. It'll creep up all day, but you have to say, I worried about that, and I'm going to worry about that tomorrow. And then you go back and you have that worry time again tomorrow. It really works. It takes practice, but it really works.
Okay, fantastic. So I have a couple of questions coming in here from Gayla. What advice can you share to parents on how to encourage our children to be who they are meant to be, to feel confident, and to fulfill their mission in this world?
That's a heavy set question.
Just that little thing.
Actually, just to step back for a second, I think that the kids right now, what they're going through with COVID-19, you know, they've lost a lot of what they love. You know, they've lost their sports, they've lost their camp, they've lost, you know, graduation. A lot of the things that they loved and were looking forward to, they're missing out on. But I'll tell you something, what I'm noticing is the resilience, the way they're adapting, the flexibility, the positivity. I think that the kids today, because of what's going on, are going to be the most incredible leaders of tomorrow, because they know how to deal with disappointment, and they're learning that, you know what, life is going on. It's different, but it's moving forward. And I'm here today, and I'm going to be here tomorrow, and I'm doing great. And I just think that's amazing. So that would be my kind of advice to your question. You know, find out what it is that they're really passionate about and really work that passion. Get them to be an expert at something, anything. That would be kind of, one of our kids was an amazing swimmer, and that got her through life. This is her picture there, that's her swimming. And, you know, Ben was so into hockey and his skiing, and you just really got to work on those skills. And I think that's key.
We have a number of teachers writing in saying, Andrea and Shirley, saying how proud they are to be associated with you, to have Project Give Back at their schools, and just what an inspiration you are to them.
I love them. I love them all. Thank you, guys.
Here is something from Natalie saying, what advice do you have for those who don't know how to support their friends or family who are grieving?
That's a very good question. My answer would be, actually, there's going to be a chapter on that. How do you help those? Probably the worst question you can ask somebody who's grieving is, what can I do to help? Because they have no idea, or they won't tell you. So the best thing I think you can do to help somebody who's grieving is to do something from your heart, you know, because it may be the wrong thing, but it's something, and they know that you care, and they know how much you love them. And sometimes it's just an ear. It's not advice. It's just to be there for them. And that's really all people need. They need to know they're not alone.
Okay. I have a question for you. Were you always this amazing glass half full type of person, or is this something you learned through the things that you've gone through?
So my mom's on here. I don't know, Mom, will you answer? I don't know if she can come through. So is my dad. You know, when I was young, well, my parents are both very positive people. They're very resilient and very glass half full people. So I have that. And so is Jeff. Jeff's more practical, and he does a lot of research and he's very careful, but he's also a very glass half full. So yes, I think I was at a young age, but my mom, you know, had me tested really early on because I was a dreamer. I would just space out of anywhere. I was in this like happy bubble as a young little girl. So I guess it's just kind of matured. I've matured into my bubble a little bit. But yeah.
Incredible. Okay, and another question. How did you find your positive strength every day? So not just on a sort of a broad sense, but every morning to wake up and do what you had to do, and not just do it, not just get through it, but do it so gracefully.
Well, I had Jakey. I mean, honestly, he was such a gift. You saw those pictures in the video. You could see that smile, and you could see that face. And he just forced me to be positive because he was so positive. And he kind of changed our whole family. We were all that way with him.
Okay. We have time for one more question. Are there any more questions for Ellen? Yes, here's another one. Can you share ways that you take your creative ideas to realities? I think if you are really passionate about something and you work really hard to do something and you share that with others, people are going to join you. And you have to take those risks. You do. I mean, when I started Project Give Back, for instance, I took a year off of my teaching. I left. I didn't have a salary for a year. Jeff was so supportive, and thank goodness, you know, he could help me with that for that year. But I took the risk, and you can't be afraid to take the chance, because I really think that later on, you're going to be sorry you didn't try. You know, yes, I could have failed, and I failed in many ways in different things, and that's okay to fail. And failing is a good thing because you learn. That's the only time you learn, is when you fail. You don't learn when everything goes great, right? You only learn when it hurts and you feel it. And that's my advice. Just go for it. Good thing to remember right now, right? We're all feeling lots of different things, and things aren't quite going the way we expect, but
yeah,
we're all going to be better for it. Okay, well, thank you so much, I'm going to turn it over to Leslie now. That concludes our question period. It was an amazing presentation. Leslie?
Thank you so much, Ellen, for joining us tonight. And Bonnie, you did a terrific job moderating. What an insightful conversation. And sorry if I have mascara on my eyes, because I think we were all a little weepy, and it was really beautiful, your message. Ellen, your passion for philanthropy and your positivity is just contagious. And your story is so beautiful and so heartwarming. So thank you so much for sharing it with all of us. I see lots of beautiful messages coming through the chat on how so many people were moved and inspired by what you said this evening. So on behalf of my fellow co-chairs, I would like to thank everyone for joining us this evening for our first virtual edition of Book Talks. These are unprecedented times that we're living in. And so it's wonderful to be able to share something like this with a community leader like Ellen. So thanks again for joining us. From all of us, we wish you and your families good health. And this brings us to the end of tonight's webinar. We hope you've enjoyed. I'm sure you've enjoyed. Have a great evening and a wonderful rest of your week.